when I was in Manchester a week last Sunday, during the announcements, a slide came up which said 2008, the year of new beginnings. It reminded me that, of course, as we came into 2008, there was great enthusiasm about this being a year of new beginnings, but of course, after 2 or 3 months, we're very quick to forget the things that we felt at the start of the year because we move into different things. I think it's a good idea to just look back at some of those things and think, what is this year of new beginnings? Certainly for us, it's been a season when we've seen God opening doors for us. We've seen many doors close, and we've seen the reconnection with a whole host of friends from past years. But before I come back to that, I was having a conversation with a friend about, again, 2 weeks ago, and this friend was saying to me, isn't it interesting that Barack Obama has been elected President of America almost exactly 40 years after the death of Martin Luther King. 40 years is a very significant period of time in the scriptures. You see the 40 years, of course, in the wilderness. You see Jesus was 40 days in the wilderness. And it left me with a thought. About 40 years ago now, we saw the charismatic renewal really beginning to happen. The church had been quite close to the body experiencing the things of the Spirit. And around about 40 years ago, there was this awakening that was taking place, and many people were finding Christ, many people were being filled with the Holy Spirit and beginning to speak in tongues and occasionally to prophesy and so on. And for the past 40 years, I would guess that for most of you watching this YouTube today, you are people who are familiar with those things. But the thought that I had is that I wonder if the charismatic renewal was really a transition period, like when Israel left Egypt and came to the Promised Land. There was 40 years in the wilderness. And so I have a feeling that much of what we have experienced so far has been like the time in the wilderness for Israel, and we're about to come to the Jordan and cross and enter the Promised Land. About 6 months ago now, I received a prophecy that had been posted by a lady called Christine Larkin in the UK. The prophecy spoke of 2 ways. One way being the broad way, which was an okay way. It was a familiar route, and it was the way that many churches function today. But the second way was a much more narrow, complicated route that had many obstacles. It was full of twists and turns, and it was very, very challenging. And the prophecy encouraged people who felt that they were on an unfamiliar path to press on and to press in. And I believe that this unfamiliar path is the path that God is leading us onto, so that we can be a relevant generation of Christians to the people of the world. And so we can't believe in January that this is a year of new beginnings, and then be approaching the end of the year and still be holding out and saying, no, we know, we like the way we do things. We don't want anything much to change. We want to just carry on with the familiar path. If it is a year of new beginnings, as so many of the prophetic guys told us it was, and actually we ourselves believed, then what's new? I think for us, this recent trip to the UK has been very, very encouraging, because we have very strongly reconnected with friends from 20-25 years ago. And of course, we have connected with a number of different people who actually were members of youth groups 25 years ago, but now are leading ministries. And for Lynn and I, we both felt that there was a very good and a very strong connection with these people this time. It was a very encouraging trip. But I think the thing that we've come back with in the past few days we've been considering is that there are still some old relationships that God will restore and God will reconnect us with. But perhaps even bigger than that, there is a way that God is leading us, and He is taking us into something that is unfamiliar. It may be on the face of it difficult and challenging, but it will be the land that God has promised us. And so we stand at a point where we are spiritually seeing the Jordan is parting, and we are coming through on dry ground into the promised land. And I believe that in the next few months we're going to see God release to us this land, that not just the land of Greece, but this region that is from Jerusalem to Illyricum. We're going to see God release that to us once again. And I know that for some of you who are watching this today, you have got faith for a particular area, a particular region where you are living or working. And I want to encourage you not to lose sight of that, because as we move into a season of new beginnings, then in fact we will begin to take hold of those things. Just one more thought, and that is, of course, for us as a group down here, we've realised that to enter into the new that God has been speaking of, we've had to let go of some of the old. And that has been both challenging and not always very easy. But in terms of going on and pressing into all that God has for us, you have to let go of the old. You cannot actually take it with you. And so I want to encourage you that in this season of transition that we find many churches are facing at this moment, be willing to deny yourself. Be willing to let go of those things that you really want to hold on to, so that your hand is empty so you can take hold of the new things. Because if you just constantly want to gather more and more and more, you end up feeling cluttered and buried beneath a mountain of paraphernalia and stuff. But actually we need to be those who travel light into this new season that God has in store for us. Okay, so I want to encourage you today that when God said that 2008 would be a year of new beginnings, He meant it. I want to encourage you to take time to just look at what new beginnings God has given you, because we certainly are very encouraged as we see. And I encourage you as you press on. You know, there is something in the gospel where Jesus said, if anybody wants to come after me, if anybody wants to go down the road that I'm going down, then they've got to be prepared to deny themselves, to take up the cross, to follow me. And I know that we would love to have a comfortable ride. We would love to just travel in a chauffeur-driven limo to our destination. But in reality, I think that must get quite boring. The reality for us all is that we rise to the challenge, that we retain an open heart, yet we keep a clear focus, and we press into those things that God has for us. So I believe before us, before many of you, is a Jordan that God is going to open up so that you can enter into the promised land. Final thing just to say is I heard a preacher earlier this year speak about Joshua and when he took the land. And the mistake that Joshua made was that he never trained up the next generation. Moses had prepared Joshua and Caleb and maybe some others, but they're the ones we know of. And Joshua failed to do that. And I believe the key to really taking possession of the future is not just organising great meetings and having a good sort of church life, but the real key is making disciples. That's what our commission is from Jesus. Go and make disciples.